Shalom, Israel. We the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Start out on 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. This is the Friday Lashawan Qadash class. We break down the scriptures from a linguistics perspective. I mean, something that your Christian pastor is ill-equipped to do. A lot of, especially your Christian pastors, but a lot of these fake Israel or these fake Israelite groups, these Christian Israelite groups that are not under Commanding General Yohana, in the ISUPK, they omit the Hebrew language, the Lashawan Qadash, the holy tongue. And by omitting the language, you kind of overshadow, or it's easy to overlook that this Bible is written about and for and to a specific people. So by omitting the language, you omit the culture. And that's the reason why Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans read this Bible, and they think that this Bible is for everybody. When they read this Bible, they think that you should love the people who are mass incarcerating you, or, as the brother went over this Wednesday, we supposed to love the people that do calculated things to make sure you remain a slave, who castrate you and buck break you and destroy you and destroy your families and lynch you and do all these diabolical things. Is because we don't understand that this Bible is talking about a specific people and a culture that belongs to a specific people. But by going into the language, you can see that, this Bible is talking to and about a particular people, and it's talking just like you. You get into this Hebrew, which we're going to get into in a second, but you get into this Hebrew and it talks just like you. How your oppressor, they like to use big fancy words, and they take a lot of words from a bunch of different languages. We simplify a lot of things that they say. Like they might say a big fancy word that, not only do you not understand, but they probably don't even fully understand. And then we say things like for example, let me think of, they might say a word like grandiose, which means to they'll say that word to us. We'll say you doing too much. That's basically what that word means. That's how the Hebrew is used in the Bible. Or they'll say, and not only is it like that, where they'll use certain words that are unnecessary. We get straight to the point, but also we use metaphors. We use a lot of slang, which is just a metaphorical way of speaking. That's all slang means. But we use slang, and there's a lot of slang in this Bible where, the obvious examples is the so-called serpent in the garden. Now, if you talk to any Christian, they'll say it was a snake. Because in their mind, they automatically, because they read the Bible from a oppressor's perspective, their mind automatically goes to the animal. Or another example of the fruit from the tree. Because they read the Bible from a oppressor's perspective, their mind automatically goes to an apple. Now, apple and snake aren't in those verses that I just paraphrased in Genesis, I believe the second and third chapter. Apple and snake aren't in those verses. It's fruit and serpent. But we know that when we're talking about a serpent or a snake, as a Black, Hispanic, or Native American, we know that we're talking about a sneaky person, somebody that can't be trusted. But you read the Bible from a Christian perspective or a oppressor's perspective, and you're going to think a literal snake went and slithered through the garden and talked to this woman and gave her an apple, when also apple isn't in the scripture that I just paraphrased. It's not there. It says fruit from the tree. But we know fruit or food is information. It's something that you're taught, food for thought. Eat this. And it's all through the Bible. You had to digest this. I believe there's a whole series of books called Reader's Digest or something like. I'm It's pretty old, so I probably don't remember too well. But there was a whole section of a magazine or so, a whole series of books called Reader's Digest. To digest something is to, or digest is referring to information. You know what I mean? But point being, if you read this Bible from a oppressor's perspective, you'll miss the slang that we speak every day. Like we call people snakes every day, snakes and rats all the time in the hood. But all of a sudden, when we open this Bible, we see things like that, and we don't correlate it to, or we see snake in the Bible, and we forget slang. We forget how we talk and how we read and how we understand things. It's because of Christianity. It's because your Christian pastor and these Christian Israelite groups omit the language. So, I mean, that's what we're going to help you out with that today. So if you got any questions or comments related to the Lashawan Qadash or off topic, you know, I mean, you can put them in the chat. If you're watching on, or if you're watching in the class, you go ahead and raise your hand if you got any questions or comments. Make sure you, with that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel, no matter what platform you viewing from. And if you watching this and you're not able to get your questions answered, or whatever the case is, or if you might not be watching this live, if you watching and you're not able to get your questions answered, or you not watching live, go ahead and hit that that QR code in the corner, Salakia. All right. With that, we're gonna get right into it. So last week we went into Salakia, last week Sabbath service. We went into Genesis, or I believe we left off at Genesis 48 and 19. Today in Lashawan Qadash class, we're going to pick up from Genesis 48 and verse 20. We're going to read through, and we're going to, just comb through it, look at the concepts that we've been studying for the last couple months, or any concepts that come up throughout the verses. We're going to pick out any sight words that you should already know, and we're just going to break it down and prepare you for Saturday Sabbath service. During Sabbath service, as you already know, if you've already participated, or if you're familiar with Sabbath service, you know that Sabbath service, it doesn't really leave much room to really ask questions, or it doesn't really leave room to like ask questions or like get in-depth breakdowns, because the whole point of Sabbath service is to read the Lashawan Qadash and break it down into English. So that's the whole focal point of this, the Sabbath service. It's like it. But with that being said, that's the benefit of being a part of the Lashawan Qadash class, where you can ask your questions. You can get in-depth breakdowns about particular concepts and things, and you can click concordance codes and get the meaning of root words and build your vocabulary in the Lashawan Qadash class. All right. So that's the benefit of it. So what we usually like to do is, if there's no particular if there's no particular concept that we need to go over or brush up on, then we'll just read what we're going to read in Sabbath service, just so we can get prepared for what we're going to see in the next day during Sabbath service. All right. So with that, we're going to get right into it. And another benefit as well. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to read a couple verses in the English from what we're about to break down in the Lashawan Qadash. And that's another benefit of being in Friday Lashawan Qadash class, where, as I said before, in Sabbath service, you read in the Hebrew first, and then we break it down in English. And a lot of times people get lost because we're just not familiar with the language. But in Friday Lashawan Qadash class, we could read it in the English, get the context of what we're talking about. So when we break it down in the Hebrew, and we break down the meaning of the words and things like that, or we hear certain words that should be sight words that we should already know and understand, then we can make a little bit more sense of it, because we already read it in the English. So that's another benefit. That's what we're gonna do tonight. Make sure you share the class with your family members, or your if you disagree, or if you're in a Christian church or a fake Israelite group or Christian Israelite group, make sure you share it with your members as well. So y'all can, if y'all think that I'm wrong or y'all think that I'm lying, go ahead, get in these comments and tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm lying, tell me off. But with that, we're gonna get right into it. All right. So Genesis 48 and verse 20. All right. All right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 48 and verse 20. And he blessed them that day, saying, and these shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. Verse 21, and Israel said unto Joseph, behold, I die, but God shall be with you and bring you again into the land of your fathers. 22, moreover, I have given to thee one portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite, which my sword, it's like with my sword and with my bow. All right, so last week during Sabbath service, we left off right when Israel is he's passing, right? So he's about to lose his life. He's about to die. All right. And he's dying in a way that blacks, Hispanics, and all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans should aspire to die. That's how you want to die. You know what I mean? Where we, at this point, like, we fear death so much that we do anything at all possible to try to avoid death. I mean, go, not limited to, we steal from one another to try to avoid our whole, every time we do something that's diabolical or that's just evil to one another, it's to avoid death. That's the excuse. When you sell drugs to somebody's child or to somebody's mother, somebody's father, somebody's brother, and they overdose, your excuse is, oh, I had to feed my family. I got mouths to feed. I got kids. I had to put food on the table. I had to eat out here. That's what we say, which are all key things to survival. You rob somebody. I had to eat out here. The same thing. It's all to survival. And a lot of brothers and sisters, you do them drugs, and I know a lot of brothers and sisters don't think weed is a drug, but you smoking that weed, you got to smoke that weed every day. A lot of time, you smoke that weed to your inconvenience, where you don't have the resources, you don't have the time, you don't have the energy or the money to continue this habit, but you do it anyway. A lot of alcoholics as well. You got these habits that are unproductive to you, and the excuse is you're trying to survive out here. It's what keeps you. Long story short, to put it all in a nutshell, you doing these things to keep from jumping off a cliff, to put it, in a way that's not going to get the page shut down. But, you doing these things to keep from putting a rifle in your mouth, and eating them bullets. But long story short, the reason why we do a lot of the diabolical things or the things that are against the Most High is because we just trying to survive. Even down to what we eat. I see a lot of good night. I see a lot of people who like diabetics and people who have like eating disorders. The reason why they have those disorders is because they're trying to survive. They get a certain gratification from that eating disorder or whatever the case is, and they're doing these things to survive. Point being, our life is based on survival. Where we do a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of evil things to one another, or we do a whole bunch of evil things to ourselves, all for the sake of surviving, just trying to make it till tomorrow, just trying to make it to the end of your shift, just trying to make it to the evening, just trying to make it to where you can, just trying to make it to bed so that you can wake up the next day. But this is how Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans should aspire to die, where you live a life that's full of, you live a life that's full of, first and foremost, keeping the commandments and following the Most High, obeying the Most High, raising your children to do so. You you start your family, you build your family, you develop skills, you work, you develop skills to, you know what I mean, be able to pass down to your family. And I'm not talking about working at Walmart or, you know what I mean, joining your oppressor's military or their police force, but like things that's going to benefit your nation. You know what I mean? And then you pass that down to your children. You raise up your children. You see them become men. You see them become women. You see them get to start their own families and do the same thing. You get to guide them through life, because that's another thing that we don't get to do as Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. We don't get to guide our families through life. You know what I mean? Because you too busy trying to survive. You know what I mean? Your sons, your daughters, you know what I mean, they need you. They need your advice. They need your help. They might need your support, your financial, your physical support. They might need to call you for some wisdom, but you can't provide any of those things because not only are you trying to survive yourself, but a lot of times, like, you don't have the wisdom and the physical strength or the the financial stability to be able to support your family, because all your life you've been trying to survive, and your parents had to go through the same thing where they didn't have the mental stability or the financial stability or the strength to be able to support you, and it's all a cycle. I mean, but what we should aspire to do is to die like, you know what I mean, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did. You know what I mean, where they surrounded by their family, they able to be a part of their family's lives and raise them, give them wisdom. I mean, be there for them. Watch them turn into, you know what I mean, adult men and grown women. Watch them start their own families and be able to be there to, you know what I mean, Isaac, he started to lose his sight. You know what I mean, he can't even, I believe, or Slakia, I believe Isaac and Jacob, they started, when they got older, they started to lose their sight, but they were still there to be able to bless their children and give them wisdom and give them foresight. You know what I mean? Because these are prophecies. What we're reading right here in Genesis, the 48th chapter, and going into the 49th chapter, these are prophecies. Just like when Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau, these are he gave them prophecies, and they came to pass. You know what I mean? But even when you lacking, even if you don't have physical strength, or you losing your sight, or you losing your hearing, you know what I mean? Even at down to the last drop of they, you know what I mean, or they strength in their life, they was able to be a part of their kids' life and give them wisdom and foresight. You know what I mean? That's how you should aspire to die, Black man, Hispanic man, and Native American man. But this is something that we just can't understand because we just trying to survive. We dodging strays. I mean, we trying to avoid the police. You know what I mean, we trying to keep from our baby mothers from stabbing us. That's our day-to-day life. We trying to make sure we don't get fired today. We trying to just make sure we able to make it to work. We trying to have enough to smoke for today to be able to make it to work and be sane and not crash out while you at work. That's what we trying to do. But this is life right here. What we about to read. Salaki. So I'm gonna read it one more time just to bring it full circle, and then we're gonna get into the Hebrew. All right. So verse 20. And he blessed them that said, or Salaki, and he blessed them that day, saying, and these shall Israel bless, saying, Salaki, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he said Ephraim before Manasseh. So right here, so previously when we was reading the Sabbath service, Manasseh, so of course Manasseh is the older, Ephraim is the younger, but the Most High, or it's like it, Israel, or the Most High through Israel, put Ephraim over Manasseh, right, and gave him, you know I mean, gave him or he said that he would be greater than Manasseh. All right. Verse 21. And Israel said unto Joseph, behold, I died, but God shall be with you and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. 22. Moreover, I have given you the one portion above thy brother, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword or with my bow. All right. So let's get into let me share my screen real quick. And if you haven't already, as we always say, Make sure you got Salaki. Salaki. Figure out what's going on. All right. Salaki. I'm just trying to figure out why I can't. For some reason, it's not letting me share my screen. All right. Just bear with me just a second. Salaki. All right. For whatever reason, I'm unable to. Salaki. Whatever reason, I'm not able to share my screen. Let me see if I can. All right. It's like whatever reason, for whatever reason, I'm not able to share my screen. Let me see one more thing. No sweat. All right. For whatever reason, I'm not able to share my screen. Tried everything. Salakia for the delay, but we go ahead and move on. If you're watching online, all right, make sure you have Bible Hub. All right, that's what I'm gonna be reading from. So you're just gonna have to follow along. I usually share on the screen, but I mean, you're gonna have to do a little work today. All right. So as I'm reading through, make sure you have Bible Hub, and make sure as I'm telling you, I might go to certain resources. I might click on certain features on Bible Hub to help be able to break down what we going into. Make sure you follow along. Make sure you got Bible Hub open so that you can follow along. All right. And listen to, listen for those cues, especially when we go into concordance codes, right? So that's going to be a big thing that we're gonna need to be able to understand the Lashawan Qadash, these concordance codes, because it's going to give you a 360 scope on. It's going to give you a 360 scope on, how to break down the Lashawan Qadash, what parts, or So of course we got uh. Of course, you should already be familiar with the 4 steps to being able to break down any phrase in the Lashawan Qadash. So you got a root word usually, and then a preposition that comes before the root word, a possessive that might come after the root word, and any tenses that might become that you might see in the middle or the end of a root word. All right. So you clicking on that concordance code, and it's gonna separate all of those things. So you might see a phrase that has a combination of maybe all of those things. You click on that concordance code, and it's gonna separate the root word. So it's gonna tell you what the root word is, and then from there you'll be able to separate the preposition, or you'll be able to identify the preposition, uh, possessive, and tenses based on its position in relation to the root word. All right. So that's the whole point of going in the concordance code. So if I which I'll do a lot, if I mention a concordance code and tell you that we're clicking on one, make sure you follow along so that you can be in the loop. All right. Let me get there on my phone since I can't share my screen. And I'm gonna just read a couple verses. So I read 3 verses in the English to get the context. We broke down the context of what we're talking about and what's about to happen. And we about to read. Now we're about to read Salakia. Salakia. Now we're about to read the same 3 verses uh in the Hebrew. All right. So Salakia. Wrong one. 48 and 20. All right. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 28, or Salakia, chapter 48 and verse 20 in the Hebrew. Wayaborakam Bayawam Hahawa'a La Amawar Baka Ya Barak Ya Sharala La Mar Ya Yashamka Alahayam Ka Aparim Wa Ka Manasha Wa Yasham Ath Aparim La Panya Manasha. Verse 21, Wa Yamor Yasharala Al Yawasap Hana Anakia Math Wa Haya Alahayam I'm come Waha Wahashiyab Athkam Al Salakia Arataza Abathyakam. 22, Wanya Nathathia Laka Shakam Achar Al Salakia Achad Al Akyaka Ashor Lakwach Thaya Mayad Salakia Ha Amarya Abar Salakia Acharabia Salakia Bacharabia Wa Ba Wash Salakia Wabakwashthia. All right, let's go back to verse 19 real quick. Just like in verse 20. We're going to break it down line by line. All right. Now, if you're watching online, right? You're watching online, again, I just want to remind you one more time before we get into it. Make sure you have Bible Hub. If you don't have Bible Hub downloaded, make sure you download it real quick. All right. And if you have it downloaded, make sure you have it open. Make sure you go to Genesis chapter 48 and verse 20. Otherwise, you're not going to understand nothing that I'm saying and nothing that I'm breaking down. And, it'll be a waste of time for you. I mean, it's not going to be a waste of time for me because somebody's going to watch this video. Somebody's going to somebody's going to follow the instructions. It might not be today. It might be 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now where another brother or sister is going to watch this video and understand what I'm breaking down. And they're going to follow the instructions and they're going to, get the understanding of the Hebrew. All right. But it is going to be a waste of time for you if you're watching this video and you checking in and you don't follow the instructions that I'm giving you. All right. So I'm going to give you just a second to make sure you do that. All right. Make sure you got Bible Hub open. And just as I read it as well, if you already got it open, you're already diligent. Make sure, just take a second to read through it just as I did. And I'm going to give you just a couple seconds for anybody who might have just, joined or who isn't prepared. Go ahead, get prepared. All right. All right. Now we're going to break this down. So like we're going to break this down line by line. All right. Line by line. So first one, right? Genesis 48 and 20. Waya barakam. All right. Let's click that concordance code. If you not familiar, like a lot of these, like for this example, this has a sight word in it that you should be well familiar with for a couple reasons. I believe it's in both the sisters and the brothers salute in the ISUPK. It's in a lot of the prayers that we do during Sabbath service. It's everywhere. We use it all the time. It's in a lot of brothers' names as well. So this is a site. It has a sight word in it that we should be very well familiar with. All right. So a lot of times, like as you practice, and the more you practice, the more the better you're gonna be at speaking and reading, and the better you're gonna be at speaking and reading, and if you're a teacher, teaching the Hebrew. All right. But so a lot of these, like a lot of time, like if you see a common sight word in the Hebrew word or in the Hebrew phrase rather, you're not going to have to always go to the concordance code. I'm just going to go to the concordance code just for teaching purposes. But, I'll just break it down. So make sure you just click that concordance code. Click that concordance code. And if you're not familiar with this at all, like maybe this is your first class, then clicking that concordance code is going to be your bread and butter. It's going to separate all of the things that are attached to the root word, and it's going to help you be able to pronounce the phrase. Like, I'm going to go back. The way I pronounced it is Waya barakam. That's how I pronounced it. Waya barakam. Right? And I'm going to explain why it's pronounced that way, and I'm going to explain the parts. Right? So you click the concordance code, and it just shows you Barak. right? That's all it shows you. And that's what I was talking about before. Like, if you're following along, you'll see that the phrase is Waya Barakam, but you click the concordance code, and all you have is it went from 6 characters to 3. I mean, that's because it dropped off the prepositions and the possessives. All right. And it just leaves the root word. All right. So the root word is Barak. Barak. Should be, again, this should be a sight word. But if it's not, or if you're new to the class or whatever the case is, Barak means to bless or to kneel. Or depending on the context, it can also mean knee, right? As we went over. And that's another thing as well. A lot of times, like a lot of things that are sight words or basically things that, like, words that help you kind of breeze through the Hebrew. A lot of these things come from what's it called? A lot of these things come from the classes that we've been doing. The subject tailored classes that we've been doing for the past couple months. So, a class that's tailored to specific body parts, so that you can add those body parts to your vocabulary. Numbers, ordinal, cardinal numbers. What else? The pictographs for each character. So each character has a pictograph. So knowing those pictographs will add certain words to your vocabulary. Knowing we went over prepositions, possessors, root words, past tense. There's a whole sheet that has 100 most common nouns, 100 most common verbs. If you just comb through that sheet, it's not gonna happen overnight. But if you just comb over that sheet, you'll get your root words. You'll get a whole bunch of root words that you can add to your vocabulary, and it'll help you be able to breeze through the Lashawan Qadash. All right. But this is one of those words. Barak is a word that we use often. It's one of the, I believe, most common verbs. And there's 100. There's 100 most common verbs, most common nouns. So that's 200 root words. Like, if you just be diligent and if you just look over that list daily, you just take a glance at it, then you'll start to add root words to your vocabulary. But it's one of those, all right? But to reiterate, a lot of these root words come from classes. So if I see a root word that's one of the that pertains to one of the classes that we've done in the past, and I'll just mention it. I'll just say we've done this class on this topic, so that you can just go to ISUPK Killeen or ISUPK, whatever city you in, and then look up that topic. And then 9 times out of 10, if you're in Killeen, 9 times out of 10, a brother has went over this topic, or if you're in another city, 9 times out of 10, a brother went over this topic already. You could get brushed up. All right. But back to it. Waya Barakam. So Barak is the root word. So since Barak is the root word, that leaves Waya in the beginning and the Ma at the end. All right. That's very simple. So Waya are both prepositions. All right. And that's the most common nuance that you're going to see as you read in the Lashawan Qadash. Like, you'll see a root word, and then most commonly what you'll see is a preposition or two attached to the beginning, and then a possessive attached to the end. All right. So that's a Lashawan Qadash 101. All right. So that's what you're seeing right here. So Waya is 2 prepositions, meaning and he. All right. And he. So Waya Barak means and he blessed. And he blessed, or and he blessed. And then the ma at the end is a possessive. That means there, in a masculine or a general sense. All right. And that should be in your list of possessives. That should be in your notes. Again, if it's not in your notes, If it's not in your notes, then you go just watch the class. I would advise brothers, if you're not familiar with the preposition possessors, I would just advise brothers and sisters to just watch a class that's tailored specifically to each preposition and possessors, because there's specific, details and information pertaining to each preposition and possessive that you're gonna need. All right, that you're gonna need to understand. All right, so having just the list is a good start, but it's not. I would just advise that you watch those classes so that you can get the small details. All right, because it'd be those small details that kind of trip brothers up and sisters up in reading the Lashawan Qadash. Of course, there's nothing wrong with having a list, and the list is very simple, but so that you can have the full understanding, I would advise brothers and sisters to just watch the class. I believe it's a 2-hour class, just specifically tailored to prepositions and possessives. Right. And then that way you can have a full grasp on the Lashawan Qadash. But that's all it is right here that we're looking at. Waya Barakam is just 2 possessives. Waya meaning and he, Barak meaning blessed, and then the ma at the end is possessive meaning them. All right. Waya Barakam. Yeah, it's like you're by your wum. By your wum. All right. Click that concordance code again. If you click that concordance code again, just for time's sake, I'm not going to do it right now, but you could do it at home. All right. But you click that concordance code. Yawam means day. Right. And then what does that leave? The ba in the beginning. The ba in the beginning means in. So in day. Right. And then the next phrase, ha hawa'a. Ha is a preposition that means the, and hawa'a means it or he, his, or it. Right. In this context, it means it. All right. So when you see so when you see a phrase that says in English, because we speak English, if you translate the Hebrew to the English, it's not going to always, because English isn't our native language, it's not going to always sound the exact same or translate as smoothly in a different language. All right. So you could translate, the same goes for any language. You could translate any language into another language and it doesn't quite translate as smoothly because we speak the language differently. Same thing with like the metaphors that we was talking about earlier. Like the metaphors we were talking about earlier. Like if I say, oh, he a snake, or that's a snake over there. You know what I mean? If you're talking to somebody who only speaks English, they gonna be looking for a animal. They're gonna be like, "Well, snake, where?" They're gonna be looking for a cobra or something, or a python. But because we speak a different language, we speak a different dialect, then we know as Black people, we know if we say, "Hey, watch out for that snake over there," we're not gonna be looking for no python. We're gonna be looking for, you know what I mean? We're gonna be looking for somebody who can't be trusted. You know what I mean? Who's known for not being trusted. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to clock it and we're going to be like, all right, yeah, watch out for that snake over there. But if you're in somewhere like Australia, you know what I mean? They're going to be looking for a snake. They're going to be looking for a python. But the same thing. All right. So when you see the or hawa'a, which translates into English, the it. That's what it translates to in English. The it. But when you see that, it means that. So there's different ways to say that. But at the end of the day, when you see the it, whether it's hawa'a or let me think. You'll see different examples. And next time, since we're just combing through the scriptures in the Lashawan Qadash, another example is going to pop up. It might pop up in tonight's class, because that is such a common phrase or word. So it might, pop up, or we might have seen it in the past. But if it pops up again, then I'll make an example of it as well. But long story short, if you see hawa'a, which is a common way to say that, then or it in the English, it'll directly translate to the it, but when you see the it just means that, right? So by Yawam Ha Hawa'a is in that day, right? So again, in the English, it translates in day that, right? But in the Hebrew, you know what I mean? In the Hebrew, it's just saying in that day. You know what I mean? In that day. That's all it's saying. So it's referring to Israel blessing his sons and his sons, and in that day, the day where he's about to pass, and the day where, you know what I mean, in that day that we're talking about, he's blessing his sons, right? I'm a war, right? This is another simple one. Has a sight word in it, and then a preposition, and then a tense. All right. So la or slaki. I'm gonna start with the root word. So if you at home again, you can click that concordance code, get the root word, and it should take you to Amar. Amar means to say, right? That's gonna be very important. Now, all you got to do again is just plug in the prepositions, possessive tenses, if any. All right. So now Amar is the root word. So la at the beginning, if you got your preposition and possessive sheet, you know la is a preposition which is preposition or comes before the root word. La means to or for. All right. And then that just leaves Amawar. So how do we go from Amar to Amawar? You just added a Y in the middle. And if you have your tenses, which should all be on the same sheet, which that's what I recommend. I mean, you can build yourself a little cheat sheet. You got your prepositions, possessives, your tenses, got your prepositions, your possessives, your tenses, and things like that that you can quickly access. It might be one sheet of paper, front and back at the most. But if you build a cheat sheet, maybe either at the front of your notebook or the end of your notebook that you could just quickly reference if you forget anything, that's what I recommend. But if you've done that already, it should be on your cheat sheet. If you haven't, I recommend putting it on there and then going back to those classes so that you can add all of these things to your cheat sheet. All right. But how you get from Amar to Amawar, when you put a Y in the middle of a root word, it just makes it a doing tense. Or to help you understand, if your only first and only language is English, doing tense will be like, it'll be similar to adding ing to a root word. All right. And you can see that because in the English it says saying, right? And he blessed them that day, saying, all right. So in the English it says saying. It just Amar means say, but you add that Y in the middle, say becomes saying. All right. So la Amawar to saying. All right. Baka. Baka is another simple one. It's just a preposition and a possessive attached to it, or attached to one another. So ba is a preposition that means to, or slack it in or on. And then ka is a possessive that means you or your. So baka, in your, or in you. All right. Ya Barak, which is the next phrase. Ya Barak. We already went over Barak. Barak means bless. So that, what does that leave? The ya at the beginning. The ya at the beginning just means he, his, or it, right? So ya Barak. So he bless, right? Then Yasharala, that's the name of our nation. That's the name. Our nation is named after a person, a man. You know what I mean? Our forefather, whose name was Jacob, and his name was changed to Israel, right? So Yasharala is just Israel, right? That should be another. These are all, like, so far what we've read are all sight words. They're all the sight words that you should be very well familiar with, and concepts that you should be very well familiar with. So far, nothing new has come up, and that's how it's gonna be. Like if you're a diligent student in the Lashawan Qadash and you actually put in the time and the effort to actually understand and learn the language, then uh, a lot of these things that we see aren't gonna be new concepts. They're not gonna be new concepts, and that's the point. Like the reason why the Lashawan Qadash is so intimidating is because it's a new concept. Like a lot of brothers and sisters, you know what I mean? We just like to dive into the Bible because it's written in English. It's got the English translation. And a lot of us either, whether we were in the Christian church or not, I mean, a lot of us grew up in the Christian church. I personally didn't. My parents did. But uh a lot of us, you know what I mean, grew up in a Christian church, but some of us didn't. But even if you didn't grow up in a Christian church, you're familiar with the Bible. You're familiar with the Bible, and you're familiar with I mean, the Christian dogma that the Christian church puts on the Bible. So we find it easier to just dive into the Bible because it's something that we think that we can understand. And even if we think that we understand the Bible, if we find out that what we thought we understood isn't true, we find it easier to adjust because of all of those things that I mentioned. But the Lashawan Qadash, a lot of us, most of us, uh, never even saw Hebrew, never even saw the Lashawan Qadash before, in a sense where we're, you know what I mean, we actually know certain words, like we actually breaking it down. Most of us never even seen it, let alone can read it. So it can be real intimidating. A lot of times I see brothers and sisters just avoid it altogether. But it's real simple. Like if you actually have the courage and the wisdom and the, you know what I mean, the strength to actually go and read the Lashawan Qadash or actually study it, go to the Lashawan Qadash class, ask your questions, all those different things, then you'll find out that the Lashawan Qadash is very easy. It's for the most part these 4 steps that I went over at the beginning of the class. It's just the root word, your preposition, your possessive, and your tenses. Is all it is. And then every now and then you might run into a root word that you've never seen before. Right? Every now and then you might run into a new concept that you've never seen before. But then that's where your questions come from. You just ask the question, and then you can add that to your belt. But at the end of the day, the Lashawan Qadash is very easy, and it's all just repeating concepts. It's just concepts that we already went over. So, you know what I mean? As long as you got efficient notes and you attending class and you just, all you got to do is just open Bible Hub and just take a glance. You know what I mean? Make sure you stay sharp on it. But with all that being said, you know what I mean? So far, we haven't seen anything new because the Lashawan Qadash isn't complicated. Like in English language, how long have we been speaking English? We've been speaking English for, you know what I mean, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And no matter what you read, if you continue to read, no matter what you read or no matter what media you digest, you know what I mean, whether you watching TV or whatever the case is, you're going to hear words that you've never heard used before. You're going to see words that you've never seen before. You're going to see new concepts that you've never seen before because the English language is complicated. It's always changing. It's always borrowing something from another language. It's complicated. It's always changing. You know what I mean? But you spend 20 years with the Hebrew, good night. You spend 20 years with the Hebrew, then first of all, you have mastered the Lashawan Qadash. There's nothing, you know what I mean? There's you at that point you should be fluent in speaking and reading the Lashawan Qadash. But you're not gonna run into anything new if you've spoken it or you've been reading it and speaking it for 20 years, for 10 years, for 5 years. You know what I mean? You're not gonna run into anything new. Right. But the English language, you know what I mean? No matter, you could be reading, you could be speaking and reading the English. If you look at English 100 years from now versus now, it's going to be totally different. Case in point, the 1611 King James Bible, they use words like they use words the shall and you know what I mean, moreover and behold and giveth and taketh and hereto and doeth and who hithersoever and whitherto and all of these different words. Like English changes so much over time, but you be diligent in the Lashawan Qadash and you're not going to see nothing. It's consistent. You know what I mean? Which makes it easy to learn and easy to understand and easy to speak. All right. All right. So we're going to move on. So La Amar, right? Same thing that we talked about earlier. La meaning to, Amar meaning say, to say. Wa, Salakia, Ya Shamka, right? Salakia. So Shum, right? You click on that concordance code, it's going to give you Shawam, right? Built off the root word Shum, right? Shum is name or reputation, right? All right. You put a Y in the middle, it's naming or building a reputation or establishing a reputation, right? And that's what's happening here, right? Because Jacob or Israel is establishing that Ephraim is going to, for lack of a better word, outrank Manasseh. All right. So Wa Shum Ka, right? Yah is to say he, his, or it. So he, Shum is a name or establish or to put. Let me see what it says, Salaki. To put, to place, to set, to appoint, to make. All right. Shum or Shawum. And a lot of times, just like in English, you know what I mean? Just like Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans speak, we might see an English word or a Spanish word and we'll drop off unnecessary characters. That's how we talk because we are Hebrew speaking people. And we got that spirit. You know what I mean? So you might see like a common example, a white person might say, "Do you know what I'm talking about?" You know what I mean? If you down here in Texas, you go down to Houston, they say, "No, I'm talking about." You know what I mean? That's or like I keep saying, I'm trying to slack it. Like I keep saying, slack it. But instead of saying, "Do you know what I mean?" I mean, brothers say, "You know what I mean?" You know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's what we do. Like we'll drop off unnecessary syllables or unnecessary words in a sentence or in a phrase, right? And that's what we do with the Hebrew. We get that from the Hebrew, right? That's why no other people does that unless they're trying to appropriate and mimic the way we speak or the way we communicate, right? So that's what you see in the Hebrew. That's also why we don't say shalom to one another. We don't say shalom because the Y in the middle is an unnecessary character. So when you're talking in regular conversation, it's no need to say. Now there is a context to say shalom, right? Because Y in the middle is a doing tense. So if you're doing something or if you're making peace, because shalom means peace. If you're making peace or you're doing something that makes peace, then the Y is absolutely appropriate in the middle. That's why a lot of times, like you'll see shalom in the scriptures, and because you know, what I mean, these brothers in the ISUPK so in West, these young brothers when they first start reading the Hebrew, they'll see shalom in the scripture and they'll kind of hesitate and they'll like it feels unclean because these Christian Israelite groups have made shalom unclean. But point being, the reason why shalom isn't a word or it's not a word that we use, we just say shalom is because of this concept right here. When we talking to one another, we don't we drop off certain characters that are redundant or uh, may create confusion. All right, it's just unnecessary. All right. So shalom, when we say shalom, it's a greeting, it's a salute, it's peace. We just saying peace, shalom. You know what I mean? So if you say shalom, you're saying peacing. You're saying peacing, right? Which you wouldn't say. Like you in English, you wouldn't walk around and be like peacing, peacing, peacing. That's stupid. All right. You know, it sounds stupid. It feels stupid to say. All right. So But Salakia, I keep saying Wa Yashamka. So he make you, right? Alahayim, which is the most high, right? Or Salakia, the angels. Alahayim is referring to the angels who were sent by the Most High. So you see the word God in the you see God in the scriptures. A lot of time we think God, like when we say, I hear it in the Christian church all the time when they say don't take God's name in vain. That they, in their mind, they think don't say God, don't say goddamn, don't say God for no reason. You know what I mean? But God isn't the Most High's name. That's just a title. The Most High power. God just means power, right? And then Alahayim is just plural. It's plural of powers, right? But that's just saying who's making. That's who's making Ephraim. All right, so I'm gonna just read the rest through. So Alahayim ka Aparium waka Manasha. This phrase is saying who's putting. Like in the scriptures, it says Jacob or Israel is putting. Oh, Salakia. Actually, in the English as well, it says, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh, and he set Ephraim before Manasseh, right? So this is saying who is putting Ephraim over Manasseh. And that's what you got to realize, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Like a lot of times, especially if you, like when you in the truth, I mean, you might see a brother get raised up over you. You know what I mean? You might see, or whatever the case is, you might have been in a school for 10 years, and a brother has been in for, or you might be in a school for 2 years, and a brother that just came into school, he outranks you now. That's the Lord. The Lord did that. You know what I mean? And we get caught up because we see our camp leader, or we see a captain, or we see a general, you know what I mean, who we've met, and they know us, they know our reputation and all of that. And we see them with all that considered. We see a man pouring oil on this brother's head. We see a man, you know what I mean, saying the prayer over this brother. You see a man saying his name 3 times and getting raised up. You know what I mean? Having this responsibility. But at the end of the day, you got to remember that it's the Most High that's raising this brother up. You know what I mean? And you see, this is a perfect example right here, where even we read previously that, you know what I mean, what's his name? It's like Joseph, he didn't even, when he saw it, he was like, no. He was like, he was frustrated. He was like, no, this is, Manasseh is the older and Ephraim is the younger. You got it wrong. He was correcting his father, and his father, Israel, had to tell him, he's like, nah, this is what the Most High want. You know what I mean? That's what you got to realize, that the Most High is doing this. All right. Let me see. Are we going to finish this out? Wayashum, all right. Waya means and he. Shum, we already established, means to name or to set or to put, right? And he set Ath Aparium. So Ath is just a connecting phrase. If you click the concordance code, it'll tell you that it doesn't have a definition necessarily, but it's just used to connect a subject to, you know what I mean, what the subject is doing. Right, so Wayashum, and he said that's what the subject is doing. Ath is the connector, and then Aparium is what's being said. Right, so Wayashum, Ath, Aparium, and just seeing these things, you know what I mean, it'll like you not trip or not, you know what I mean, stutter or stumble when you're reading it in the Lashawan Qadash during Sabbath service. Like you might see certain brothers, they just reading through. They just say Wayashum, Ath, Aparium, La Panya, Manasha. Like they just skimming right through the Lashawan Qadash. It's because these are sight words. These are sight words, and it's practice. And these concepts are not new. We just going through the same thing, right? But that just comes from just reading. Just reading. I know it can be intimidating, and I know it can sometimes be embarrassing during the Sabbath service when you read in Lashawan Qadash and you stumbling and you tripping and all of that. And you might not have, you know what I mean? It might have been a busy week for you. You might have had intentions to study and all of that. And, you know what I mean, to read the Lashawan Qadash. And because we all got slaveries, we got jobs and all of that. It might have been a busy week. You know what I mean? Doctor's appointments and all of that. Might have been a busy week and you didn't wasn't able to study like you wanted to. You know what I mean? So you get up on that podium and you read the Lashawan Qadash, and you know what I mean? It shows that you wasn't able to study like you wanted to. I know it could be embarrassing, but if you keep doing it, and you like that embarrassment is going to make sure you prioritize that study. You know what I mean? That embarrassment of you getting up there, and first of all, it's gonna make you more accustomed to the pressure. Like I know it's a lot of pressure to sit in front of a room full of people and read a language that you never seen before, or that they don't even understand. I mean, sometimes you might be in an empty room, and it just might be. I know that might be discouraging, but if you keep showing up, then that's gonna give you courage. That's gonna encourage you because it's gonna make you stronger. It's gonna make you better. All right. So that's why, again, like all of these concepts aren't new, but we keep going over them because the whole point is to make you better. All right. So Wayasham, and he said Ath Aparium, Ephraim, right? La Panya. La Panya means before, right? Or to break it down is to face. La means to, Panya means it's like it. Pan means face. Panya means before. Right. So La Panya means to before. Right. So he set Ephraim to be before, and then last word Manashah, which is Manasseh's name. All right. All right. So with that, we're gonna end it right there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to the channel. Share it to your relatives, whether you agree or not. You know what I mean? Share it to your relatives. You know what I mean? So y'all can get in these comments and argue with one another. Argue with me. You know what I mean? Argue to the end of the earth. You know what I mean? I don't mind a battle. I prefer a battle. Let's battle. Let's fight. Let's fight over this. Because I know that these scriptures are right. I know what's in these scriptures, and I know the culture that's in this Bible is correct. So if you disagree, come into these chats. You know what I mean? Scan a QR code and you know what I mean? Say what's on your chest. Let's fight about it. Let's fight about it. We're gonna see who the Lord is with. You know what I mean? Scriptures say let the Lord be true and every man a liar. I mean, we could go all throughout these scriptures and show how this Bible is only for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. It's for nobody else. And because I know that that's absolutely true from Genesis to Revelations, and in the Apocrypha, and every resource, the concordance, the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, and every resource that you could pull related to the Bible. And because I know that that's true, I know that no matter what kind of opinion that you got about the Bible or how you feel, we are right and you are wrong if you think that this Bible is for everybody. All right. So get in these comments, fight, battle. If you really believe on what you saying and how you feel, you really think that God loves everybody and Christ is a white man and all of that nonsense and the prophets is white and we should kiss our slave master's ass. Come in these comments and battle. Fight for your slavery. And I'm going to fight for freedom and salvation under the Most High in Christ. With that, we say Imajim, which means to stand. Give a courtesy salute to the brothers. B'Division, Ramadan Shabbat. Imajim, Barak, Yahweh Shem Yav Shabrak Thom, Yajimatah, Sar. Turn to face the sisters. Give a courtesy salute to the sisters. B'Division, Ramadan Shabbat. Imajim, Barak, Yahweh Shamar Latam Bashem Yav Shah. Yajimatah, class dismissed.